1,000 years ago, the intellectual center of the world was Baghdad. Baghdad. Europe was busy disembarreling heretics at the time. Baghdad was open to all thought at the time, between AD 800 and 1100, around there. If you look at the advances that unfolded in that period, in that location, it includes the invention of algebra. Algebra is an Arabic word. Algorithm is an Arabic word. 2/3 of the stars in the night sky that have names have Arabic names. How does that happen? Where did the naming rights come from? It came from the fact that at that time, huge advances in the Middle East, in Baghdad in particular, was unfolded in engineering, mathematics, especially mathematics, astronomy, navigation, physiology. And you say, well, why is that so? If you look at what was going on, they were open to all lines of thought. Jews, Muslims, Christians. There were doubters back then. Today we would call them atheists. They would all come around a table and share ideas. If you have some philosophy that's got holes in it, someone's going to find it. And you're going to challenge you on those ideas. And what happens is the conversation ratchets up. You discard what doesn't work and you keep what does. And when you do that, you make discoveries, and you make discoveries rapidly. And at the time, that period drew to a close. If you read history books, they'll typically describe sort of the sacking of Baghdad. It was a bad time for the city. And they say, oh, it all came to an end. However, the Islamic culture rose at other times later. And in those other times, science and engineering discoveries were not a part of it. So he asked, why not? You got the cultural heritage, why doesn't it show up again? And then you got to dig a little deeper from the sacking of Baghdad, and you find out there was a Muslim cleric, Al-Ghazali was his name, who was to Islam what St. Augustine was to Christianity. St. Augustine kind of laid out the rules for how to be a good Christian at the time. A lot of people were practicing it in their own way. He codified it. He was a religious scholar, figured it out according to his own read, told everybody how to behave. There's the book. You follow this, you're a good Christian. Al-Ghazali said, you follow this, you're a good Muslim. In that text included the assertion, which gained influence socially, but then politically, so then it had power of influence. In there was the assertion that mathematics and the manipulation of numbers was the work of the devil. The entire enterprise collapsed and never recovered. It has not recovered since. If you look at the number of Muslims who have won the Nobel Prize in the sciences, it's 1. Number of Jews who have won the Nobel Prize, 1/4 of all Nobel Prizes in science have been won by Jews. How many Muslims in the world? 1.3 billion. How many Jews in the world? 15 million tops. So you look at what effect the culture of discovery and learning can have on what you discover about the natural world. It's extraordinary. So just because you're making discoveries doesn't mean it's forever. And I look at the 20th century in America as a period of great discovery. And then I see forces now operating against it. And then I look at the history of the consequences of this, and I see America just simply fading into insignificance. No, it's not off of a cliff. It's just a slope. And every next day you're a little bit further down on the slope. You barely notice it, right? Until one day you can't see over the hill that you just came from. And then you try to make do with what you have down here, and then you find out it's the rest of the world making the inventions and not you. You're trailing, no longer leading. You're not even abreast with what's going on. You're running behind trying to catch up. Have a nice day. Yes. Okay.
We've got a question right here.
Another question, yes.
Sir, part of the...
Look how many pens you got in your pocket. I smell geek. How many pens you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got a geek right here in our midst. Raise your hand. Give him a hand.
What you have is a 70-year-old questioner.
Okay, go for it.
Part of the basis for the Big Bang Theory is the redshift that occurs as the galaxies accelerate away from us. How do you distinguish that redshift from that which would occur from the aging of those that are older because they were born first? 1. And 2, because there is this Big Bang Theory, you should be able to calculate the trajectories of all the galaxies and figure out where the center was. Can that be done?
Excellent questions. So the first one, yes, for those who have been living under a rock, we live in an expanding universe. We know this because we look out to the universe, we see galaxies, and in a discovery made by Hubble, Edwin Hubble, back in 1929, it was first published, he noted, whether there are people behind the meteorite here, I'll look at you every now and then here, but I can't. Hi. Hi. I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about you. But this is really cool to look at. Oh, and by the way, right there, this is where Stephen Colbert licked it, right in that spot, okay? Just so you know. Stephen Colbert visited the Rose Center one afternoon, worried that his comedy talk show host job would be in jeopardy, and he wanted a fallback job as an astrophysicist. So he had me train him to be an astrophysicist that afternoon. And so I showed him the meteorite, and he just decided to lick it. And then I said, that's the oldest thing your tongue has ever touched. At 5 billion years old, he said, no, I once had Jane Fonda on my show. And so that was like, whoa, where'd that come from? Then I dug up a YouTube clip, and Jane Fonda is on the show, and she saunters around the table, sits in his lap, and tongue kisses him. So this is like in his head when that was happening. So, but I digress. Jane Fonda and the Big Bang in the same sentence here. So we see the galaxies, and Hubble noticed this. He used data provided to him by others, and Huminson and Slipher, two very brilliant experimentalists. In the astronomical world, we call them observers. So they look at the galaxies, and you find out that the spectrum, credit Isaac Newton, the spectrum, there are features in a spectrum that we attribute to various chemical elements. Carbon has a fingerprint revealed in a spectrum. Oxygen has a separate fingerprint. I use the fingerprint almost literally here. Every element has its own signature in the spectrum. So you know what the pattern of lines of features looks like on Earth. You look at the galaxy, you find that same pattern, but it's shifted. You say, well, how much does it shift? That means the galaxy is moving away from us. We learned this from Christian Doppler, a German physicist in the 1800s. He did an experiment with a train, okay? And so what happens? The train whistle goes by. We know this intuitively, even if you've never thought it. It doesn't go, well, let's do it with a race car, because I can make that sound better. The car goes, meow. Right? Did I get it right? That's pretty good, right? Right? Okay, I can do that better than a train. All right. So, the car does not go, meow, meow. It doesn't do that, does it? No. It doesn't go, meow. No. It doesn't do any of that. It goes, meow. High pitch to low pitch. So the sound waves up front, every sound wave it makes, it now travels closer to that sound wave before it makes the next wave. So the pitch, so the wavelength is shorter, the pitch is higher. Okay? And when it recedes, the sound waves get stretched apart. You get a lower pitch. So analogizing what we see in the universe, you can conclude, I'm getting there, you can conclude that the galaxies that show the shift to longer wavelengths of light are moving away from us. They indeed were. He then noticed that if you were twice as far away, the object was moving twice as fast. And he looked in every direction and found, like we had some kind of case of cosmic BO or something, all the galaxies were scattering away from us, all except for a couple that are really nearby, like the Andromeda Galaxy, which we will collide with in a few billion years. More on that later. So, if you're interested, we'll get the meteorite before that, because that'll be more important. So it later turns out, Einstein shows us that this redshift is not specifically a Doppler shift, it's what we call a cosmological redshift. It shifts because space itself is expanding. And so the wave, as it moves through space, gets stretched in the expansion, the fabric of space and time itself. And so, if everybody's moving away, turn the clock back, you can ask the question, when was it all in the same place at the same time? That was 14 billion years ago. That's how we date the Big Bang. We look around, turn the clock back. And which way is everybody going? Back to the same spot. It looks like we're at the center. But the signature of this expansion would be revealed no matter where you are. If you go to this other galaxy over here, this expanding fabric of the universe will look like it's centered on this galaxy as well. So everybody was at the center 14 billion years ago. There's not some center somewhere else. We all occupied it in a different state at the same time, at the same place.